Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, December the 13th, 2018. It's 8 a.m. New York time, 5 p.m. Los Angeles time. I'm sorry, I said 1 p.m. I said p.m. didn't I? It's 8 a.m. New York time, 5 a.m. Los Angeles time. Gotta get the times right. 1 p.m. in London, and in Sydney, Australia, it's around midnight. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in. We love the fact that you are with us, whether you're listening to the live stream or to the recorded podcast. Either way, we're so grateful that you're a part of it. And we are live streaming to the Facebook Law of Attraction Change My Life group, and we're encouraging people who are listening to the live stream, if you have questions for us, this is going to be another Q&A, and we have one of the best Q&A answerers on the face of the planet in Joel Elston, so you want to take advantage of that. And Joel, how are you doing? I mean, we haven't talked in a week as usual, but when I talked to you as we were connecting here, you sound like everything's great at your end.
Things are really good. We got a little bit of snow here in the Richmond area. The schools have been on a delay, or been out of school. Now we're heading back, so I'm grateful for that. First of all, it's grateful to get the kids, off the streets and in school. They're not looking forward to it, but I really am glad they're there. And we got quite a bit of snow, and part of everything I believe in, and this is lessons for the law of attraction. Your perspective to events are determined how events affect you. That's all. That's fact. It's just whatever happens. And I know for me, I hear the complaining about the snow, or complaining about this, or complaining about that, or it's simply the snow's there. It's my response to the snow that matters, or am I inconvenienced or not inconvenienced? And that's when we spend a lot of energy worried about stuff that's out of our control, and the perception that somehow we're being inconvenienced by something, then that becomes a reality. That's the law of attraction. How you choose to view your circumstance is the only difference between a perception of good and a perception of bad. And I use the weather often because I think about when I'm out and about, almost everyone will comment like, "Yep, we got a lot of snow," and I mean, "Oh, really? Did we?" I mean, almost like randomly, here we go. So
right.
It is a gift we've been given. It's a law of attraction concept. This is how we do it, and I'm excited that we have that ability to do it. And it sort of leads into what we're doing today. So much of what happens, whether it's trauma or stress or change, it's all built on your perception of what's happening, and you're in charge of that.
Yeah, that's a big thing too, to know that we have that kind of power, right? Because with that power, not once we learn how to use it, how to harness it, how to put it to our best interest, best work, life becomes wonderful because we learn how to make it wonderful just through the power of our thoughts, which is that's a mind-bending concept still for me after all these years. I mean, I've been studying this thing since 2007. It's still mind-bending to me. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, and I one of my battles, and again, if I choose to make it a battle, it's my choice.
That's true.
One of the things that, as I said that, I'm like, okay, well, that's my perspective. But one of the things that I work hard in the field that I'm in the life coaching field, and the bigger overall concept, life coaching is sort of a branch of therapy. We're the offshoot of therapy, that traditional therapy, that most licensed therapists do. And the life coaching model is, to me, it is about perception. It is about reframing. It's about looking where you're at. And, the huge studies are coming out right now about how people view anxiety, stress, and trauma has a direct effect on how anxiety, stress, and trauma affects you. Wow. It's how you view it. The idea that there's this new thought process of stress used properly or anxiety used properly is an incredibly efficient fuel.
Wow.
It can motivate. And so when you say that, people cringe. It's just
I can feel the cringe inside.
Condition. When you look at it, and again, it's how you do it, how you view it after. And I may have used this example in the last couple of weeks, but I'm using it a lot because this is sort of the theme of the day up around here. is, after World War II, our country really viewed it as like, wow, we really salvaged this. We saved the world. We saved our country. And there was a lot of vicious stuff, horrible stuff in any kind of war that takes place.
Right.
But most people, in fact, the consensus of the country and the people that fought the war viewed it was a necessary event. Mm-hmm. And most people weren't traumatized by what took place in World War II. And then you fast forward to the Vietnam War, which had a totally different perspective. And most of those folks were traumatized on some level by the war. And this is by no means critical of our people that went there.
No.
A lot of it is perspective. And so what was the difference in what took place? One of them was viewed as a necessary event, and the other was viewed, without a political commentary on my part, by many people as, why are we even doing this?
Mm-hmm.
So and that was relayed to how people are going to view that. So you get to see how trauma has an effect, very much how you choose to do it. That learned resilience versus the learned helplessness is a growth mindset, and all of that ties into the law of attraction. And that's we left the show last week. We were talking about this lady on, I believe her name was Paula, that wrote in, and she really some great stuff she sent to us, and she was talking about her situation. And could you sort of bring us up to date on that, and then we'll talk about her situation. We would respond to it this week.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, she actually followed up to me via instant message and gave me some more details about what was going on. And I actually sent that email to you. She was talking about how they had she'd been thinking for some time that the meds weren't working. They had gone to multiple doctors, but the changes in meds weren't making a difference. And she said she told me that she had for some time been saying that he needs to see a therapist. He doesn't agree with anything that she says anymore. He thinks he's fine, even though he's exhibiting all of these really negative, awful mood swings and so forth. She says that he used to listen to her, that he doesn't listen anymore. But she still loves him. She still thinks that deep down inside there's that person, who can climb out of this. And so she really wants to keep with it and help him find a way to make his life a better life, and at the same time make her life a better life. Let's see if there's anything else in there that was. That was the gist of it. There's also a son involved. Her 21-year-old son has autism, learning disability, and suffers from depression himself, severe anxiety, OCD, scratching addiction. This poor kid's just living with a whole bunch of stuff. And apparently her husband doesn't really buy into any of it, doesn't really understand any of it, so not terribly supportive of the son. So it's a tough situation for her all the way around. And we were trying to ask for some more details. Well, we got the details,
Well, yeah, and one of the things that again, I'm so grateful for people that are working using the law of attraction in your life. And part of one of the hard lessons in the law of attraction and is we can manifest anything in our life for us that we truly believe in. That part's factual. Mm-hmm. However, the limits or the whatever term you want to use, the boundaries of the law of attraction stick to what everybody's on an individual journey that you cannot, you can influence by believing in that person. I love when she said, I see him in a certain way. I still love him. And he sounds like a great guy that probably just, he has to do his own work.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that him doing his own work is out of her control. So what she has to do is, from her perspective, if she's going to stick with this, and it sounds like she is, which I admire that greatly, is all she can do is see him in the way that she sees him. How she sees him may not be the way he is. She sees him as this great guy who deep down I believe he is. Mm-hmm. And then once he feels that energy, then he may change. The secret is, they talk about this quite a bit in The Secret, where a relationship, you're in control of your side of it. And if you're using words like he always or this always, then you've already had a preconceived notion of what's happened. When I'm sitting down with a family in my office, and I'm not amazed anymore, but by the time you got to look at a scenario when a family comes to me, regardless of the scenario. There's usually a young, a 20-year-old, using a generic example here, a 20-year-old male. He has some addictive behavior. He failed out of college. You got the mom and dad who are at wit's end and not knowing what to do with this kid. He's a man, but a little boy all at the same time. And they have developed this very negative inner dialogue, not only the inner dialogue, but an outward dialogue between themselves. So imagine seeing, I've got a little round table in my office, and I have the mom and the dad sitting by each other, and then the son by the dad, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the moment the dad starts talking, the kid slouches deeper in his chair, rolls his eyes straight up, before the dad says any words.
Right.
And so then the dad is going to listen to what the son has to say, and he just gives this like, oh, God, and crosses his arms.
Yep.
And the mom's like holding her eyes, trying not to cry. And I'm like, you guys are playing a symphony that has been rehearsed for thousands of times. And nobody, you're not hearing a word the others are saying because just the sound of the voice we have to redefine what you're hearing from the other person. It's not about the other person, it's about what you're plugging in.
Right.
So in this case, for Paula to be able to sit back and look at the strengths of her husband, look at the strengths of her dad. Dad, wow, I'm holding the top of it. Let's think of the strengths of her son. The strengths of her son is this there's a lot to look at. One of the things that I insist on when I'm working with younger people is always have and this, I'm fascinated by this. This is about anybody, but the younger kids that have been in foster care, I always start off with, tell me about yourself. And I have never had one that told me anything positive about themselves.
Really?
They always tell me they're negative. They
Wow.
always start off with their negative. Well, I'm oppositionally defiant, or I'm depressed, or I'm homeless, or I'm in foster care. And so that's always the first word. I work with thousands of kids, and I have never heard one start off with, I like to play baseball. Or it's always something. Yeah. And on a side note, that's sort of sad they like to play baseball, but that's entirely different. Anyway,
you keep saying that. I'm going to make a comment about football pretty quick here, so be careful.
Yeah, exactly. So within the context of all this, I'm looking at that's that negative dialogue. So first of all, getting the young person to realize your narrative about yourself. So now I'm not saying this would work with Paula because Paula's clear this is out of her control.
Right.
But by Paula continuing to do her work and looking at her husband sounds like an incredible man that is struggling with his own stuff. She can't make him not struggle, but she can choose to see the strengths he has. The same with her son. She can choose to help see where her son envision what they want to be. And people tend eventually, this is a very slow process, but they tend to behave as they're expected to behave.
Yeah.
I years ago, I was in South Carolina. There's a young man. It's a very, very rough case in South Carolina. And there's this young kid. There's a whole story behind it. He had killed his parents.
Oh.
And it doesn't get much worse than that. And I was doing some work with a therapist that was working with him. He was in jail. And so he was 15 years old. I met him, a very nice kid, and there's some I'm not making excuses for him, but there were some extenuating circumstances that aren't generally reported. And he was very sorry for what he did, but at the same time, there was a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes. So I was talking with him, and the guard was there, and I asked the guard to step out. And the guard looked at me like, are you crazy? And then the kid looked at me and goes, aren't you afraid to be alone with me? I'm like, why would I be afraid of you? I said, I'm here to help you. I've had no, and the entire demeanor changed in him because I was expecting something different from him. And also the fact that I was 250 pounds and he was about 120 pounds.
That helps. What do you bench press, about 400, something like that?
Yeah. You don't have a gun, so I'm pretty confident I got this situation covered. But beyond that whole thing is the fact that he perceived me, and I told him, I said, look, and he said, you're the only person that's talked to me since all this has happened. as if I'm a real human being. And I said, I really see you as that. I see you as this very bright. I don't know those details. I don't know what led you to that day. And without getting into the details and all the other stuff, I was able to see at least his perspective of it, again, filtered through a 13 or 14-year-old's brain. And it actually, the situation got as good as it could get in his environment. But all he had to do was see himself in a different way. So when I treated him that way, he then accepted, wow, maybe it isn't somebody telling me something, it's somebody behaving that way toward me. So in Paula's case, and I'm sure she's doing this, but reinforcing that with her, truly envisioning her husband in the way she sees him or wants to see him or knows the man that he is. And then eventually, our hope, that's where the law of attraction, when other people see you thriving and see you feeling good and see you in a different way, that is it. Another piece she mentions in her message was she deals with fibromyalgia, and she has a lot of stuff that she mentions is it possibly unprocessed trauma. That's almost always the case with fibromyalgia.
Is it really?
And it really is. And when people say fibromyalgia isn't real, it's very real. It's just usually a mental source of pain, and people are always trying to find a physical answer to it. It's not usually there. So fibromyalgia is often associated with, in my view, I've have had a lot of success with people on fibromyalgia that because sugar is an inflammatory in the body, it inflames, and fibromyalgia is often viewed as an inflammation of nerves. I've seen people do a lot of successful work with intermittent fasting, very low carb. And again, I'm not a doctor prescribing any way of eating or not listening to what your doctors say, but researching the fact that I've had a lot of people have success. I had a lady that was very heavy, had fibromyalgia, and she came in and went on a very low carb diet and implemented intermittent fasting. And within a year, she reports she lost a tremendous amount of body fat and reports her pain is gone, totally gone. Wow. And so again, that was one case. And fibromyalgia often is a diagnosis that is encompassing a lot of unknown factors. So it's just almost a blanket thing for undefined pain often. And so I do think that reducing sugar and doing stuff with that that's a whole different topic. But again, the attitude toward pain, the attitude toward where we're at will have an immediate effect on it. I mean, and Paula mentioned she meditates, she listens to binaural beats, affirmation, all different type gratitude journal, yoga. I mean, she's doing an incredible amount of self-work.
And those are great. Those are all good things.
Yeah. And so, so she's doing this, but what happens is, in her descriptive here, is she's doing it, but it's greeted with, in her words, greeted with negativity, moaning, arguing, in a different way. Well, all that you can do is work on keeping your vibration up and reframing. Do not allow a negative vibration to bring you down. And eventually, your positive affirmation will bring that up, is our hope. Again, other people and where they are at are completely out of our control. We remain in our control. Right. But we've talked a lot about the vibrational energy of positive thought and negative thought. And when your positive energy overrides the negative, it becomes the dominant force in the room. And I believe that I've used that technique so many times. I just come in vibrating and so positive, so upbeat, talking really fast and really excited. And people pick up on that. They grow. And it's such an exciting time when they realize, then I can say, look what happened. You grabbed my energy and raised you have that ability without me to do that. Right. And that's what we're trying to get across. And that is the law of attraction. So that's sort of encompassing where Paula was at. I'm very appreciative she wrote in. I would love to meet Paula. Love to hear from her one day if she ever wanted to call in. because this is, she's doing such great work, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to reinforce that she's doing incredible work, and this will work, guaranteed, if she keeps up.
Yeah, I believe it. And I also wanted to add myself, I love everything you described, by the way. But I also want to add that when you're dealing with something as traumatic as what she's dealing with, because she's just surrounded by trauma, it's like somebody who's in chronic pain. Your attention's constantly drawn to all of this chaos going on. And so it takes a lot of determination, a whole lot of determination to just pull your attention away from that and put it onto what you want. I mean, this is not like somebody who, they're trying to figure out what to do with their life or, whatever else, or, they just broke up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend and, their heart is broken. And I don't mean to minimize that either, but this is like an ongoing thing, just continues and continues and continues. So you have to really put your attention on what it is that you want. You have to like almost rip your attention away from all that stuff that's going on, and that's not easy to do. But the really big but is when you do it. I mean, I found that I was doing that with some chronic pain I was experiencing earlier this year, and ultimately ended up eliminating the pain entirely with pain in my knees. And I realized in the process of learning to do it that you can get like a split second of attention pulled away. And for that one split second of attention, the trauma is gone. And then it snaps back again. And then you keep trying to do it, and then you can get it for 2 seconds, and 5 seconds, and 10 seconds. And if you just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it, you actually can get to the point where you're convincing yourself you're not noticing the trauma anymore. And now you're in real control. I think that's actually what happened with you. I mean, you've told your story a number of times about how you went through some pretty severe traumas. I think you actually reached the point where you were just able to just push that out of your mind and just focus on what you wanted. And it was tremendously powerful for you.
Yeah. It's worked incredibly. I believe that at some point I had to either be my trauma or view my trauma as I totally reframe my traumas as motivational events, as learning events. There's a trauma scale that a doctor developed, and I forget the name of the doctor, and it was pretty solid guy and pretty logical in what he talked about. But if I took the trauma scale, I've been to jail, I've lost a child, my parents were divorced, I've been homeless. I score as high on the trauma scale as you can score, just about. And
right.
So the predictor of the trauma scale is I should have post-traumatic stress. The list of stuff that I should have associated with that is pretty intense, and yet I don't have that. And the difference is I look at it as growth events. I look at things that I don't wallow in this, again, not critical of anyone else. This is my journey. But I reframe my trauma as just like stress, anxiety can be used as great fuel to drive things. So can trauma. That is a learned resilience, a growth mindset is what they call it. And again, the body's response, the physical response is different based on how you view trauma. That is the latest study stuff that's coming out right now is they want to know, the scientists want to know why some people use trauma as growth events and growth mindset events, or other people are debilitated by it. And all they're coming up with is how they're choosing to look at it.
Wow.
And that's really big. And so I don't ever want to, minimalize if somebody's going through an event and say, well, Joel is putting a minimal amount of energy. I'm not. I have great respect for what everybody's journey is. Right. However, this is pretty big. This is pretty big that we see it this way. And I'm excited that this is my journey. I'm excited that your journey is where it's at, and you've had to overcome a lot. You've changed the way you viewed a lot of stuff that's happened.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, and it proves to me if I can do it, anybody can do it. Trust me. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
Because I always felt like I was the least capable of changing my own thought pattern. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. And that's really, really true. We actually also, besides responding to Paula last week, we have people asking questions this week. So I want to get to those in just a moment. I also want to take a moment to urge people who are not yet subscribers of the podcast to please become a subscriber. Even if you're listening to the live stream, we urge you to become a subscriber, because that way all of the recorded episodes come streaming to your smartphone every single time that we publish them. And that's pretty cool, because that means you got them constantly coming. We're doing 10, 11 shows a week, so you get a lot of content you can pick from. To become a subscriber, if you're listening on the live stream, in the description for the post, you can find links for whichever kind of device you're using to become a subscriber. Most of the places that we publish this, you can also find the links. If you can't find links, just go to the homepage of our website at loatoday.net, and you will find two great big icons, one for Android type devices, one for Apple devices. Just pick the one that's right for you, for whatever you're using, and it'll just walk you right through the process of becoming a subscriber. And then once you're a subscriber, please put out there on social media constantly. Just keep putting it out there every time that you're listening and enjoying LOA Today, because chances are that's how you found out about it, and that's how more and more people are going to find out about your daily dose of happy, because we want to spread the happiness. And I realized lately, we haven't really explained a lot lately why we want to spread the happiness. It's not just because we want a happy world. It's because of how the law of attraction works. The law of attraction is dependent upon our mindset. Joel was just talking eloquently about the role of perspective. Well, if your perspective is a positive one, a good feeling one, your manifesting ability of being a deliberate creator and getting exactly what you want is going to just shoot through the roof. That's what we're aiming for. We want so many people, millions of people around the world, to get their daily dose of happy so they can become deliberate creators. That's what excites me about doing the podcast, imagining all these people who are getting a little bit of a jolt and a little bit of positive boost and so forth from listening to our show, Joel, and then going out in the world and creating a wonderful world. My mind boggles at all the possibilities with millions of people behaving like that. I mean, can you imagine? I have trouble sometimes.
Oh, that's the point. That's the reason, and you describe it perfectly. This is the place where you happy opens the door. Grateful, happy, those attitudes. It's impossible to be truly grateful and happy and be depressed at the same time. They can't exist in the same brain.
That's true.
And so with that, that's the energy that the law. That's where happy's at. That's where realizing where you're at, and you have happiness at your control, and happy where you are is in your control. Then that invites more things to be happy about. That's just 101. That's the very, very. If you know nothing else, work on being happy.
Right.
When I'm doing a seminar, one of the things I've done in the past, and I go through this great lead up to this point, and I'm setting all this up, and I say, okay, everybody get their books out. I very seldom ask to take notes. I want to please write at the top of the page a step-by-step process of being happy, and everybody's listening, and they're getting their notebooks out and they're ready to go, and I go, okay, step one, be happy. And then I said, that concludes your comprehensive list of things necessary to be happy. And of course, they get to laugh at them all, and they took their books out. But I'm trying to make a point that, that's it. That's it.
That's the whole trick.
And that's the whole. And yes, I understand when you're in the middle. Nobody understands this better than me. When you're in the middle of stuff, it isn't that easy to flip the switch. But the point is, you have the ability to flip the switch. I'm not saying it's easy. I know one of the first mindsets I got to is as many of our audience know, I lost my son TJ when he was 23 in a horrible accident. And it's hard when I got the call at 6 a.m. and on a Saturday morning, and I would love to tell you, yep, I just flipped that switch, and no, it wasn't that easy. But I knew I couldn't stay in that despair for long, and without it having devastating consequences. So I as quickly as I could, I took action steps for me and got there, and realized I got as quickly as I could. I got to a place of gratitude for the time that he was there, the fun, the joy he brought to my life. That changed the process for me quickly.
And given the person, it's going to be different from one person to the next. It could take hours, it could take days, it could take weeks, it could take months. It takes whatever it takes to climb out. The main thing is you just keep taking steps to climb out, and you just don't stop until you're out. That's all.
Right. Yeah. And there's no, and one of the things that when it comes to grief especially, but in any of this, everybody's different. Everybody has a different path. Everybody has a different experience. When TJ's loss happened, when he left, it was I have been practicing the law of attraction for years, and I have worked very hard at it. So I have not, and again, not better than anyone else, but I have such a comprehensive understanding. I knew the answer. Now, it wasn't easy to put in place. I didn't have to be convinced of the answer and then apply it. I knew the answer. I just had to have the ability to get there. So I had a big leg up on a lot of people because I was already had the answer to my problem. Now, implementing was harder than just saying it, but I do make that point that it was a very, very direct point that I was able to say, yes, I need to get to the point of appreciating and being happy for the time he was in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, one of our listeners, Mary, posted, we're getting a lot of nice comments and people contributing and actually helping each other. And it's really, really good. One of the comments that Mary made was happy. And she had a picture of a smiley face. And that's it. That's the attitude right there. Just, happy.
Yeah.
So here, let's go to some of the questions here. First, very early on, Angela asked a question, and I have held on to your question, Angela, so you're not forgotten. But she wrote, how can I manifest what I want in my life? For example, in business, I want to create a team with massive wealth to help others, which is a really noteworthy and commendable goal. But what do you tell somebody who's just trying to manifest something along that line, Joel?
Well, you have to, with anything, you have to be in a position to, where are people with wealth? I mean, first of all, I love the concept of surrounding yourself with people that you want to emulate. There's all kind of studies that your income or your net worth or what have you is really sort of the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Right.
You tend to sort of gravitate toward that. Things that this is not a law of attraction group that I'm going to give a plug here for, but they are. They don't realize they are. But Toastmasters is a wonderful program that is usually used for corporate development, and it's for people who have a fear of public speaking. Is how but it's really a law of attraction mindset of you go in, you talk, they lift each other up. It's always a very positive environment. And at Toastmasters, there's often high-end corporate people that are polishing and honing their own speaking skills. So I have known many people that go to a Toastmasters room and make a lot of connections with people. And, I know people in my orbit that have vast wealth. I have a couple of acquaintances who have net worths over $1 billion, and they are very generous and always looking for the ability to create stuff. I mean, most people the people that I know that have manifested that much money that I know personally are very kind and generous people, and they're always willing to. Now, they're not throwing their money away. You don't manifest or bring about billions of dollars by giving away but stuff that matters. I know how generous they can be. So finding the first step in sort of attracting that is finding this group of people. And you don't just say, hey, excuse me, can I have your net worth? I want to hang out with you. It doesn't work that way. But you go where they're at.
Right.
I know one young lady was looking for not the exact scenario that was described there, but a similar one. And there was this restaurant where all the executives in town, and this was in Tampa, would go and eat lunch. And she couldn't afford to eat lunch there every day. I mean, it was the really, really nice place, but she put on her best clothes, and she went during lunch hour. She got a table by herself, and she would get she took a bunch of resumes with her, and she would do her work at the table, and she'd get a cup of coffee every day, every day, every day. She started seeing the same people every day. They started speaking. And they'd ask, what she does, and she said, well, actually, I'm preparing, my next. Anyway, it led to her getting high up in an organization that there's a sort of ahead of this organization's charitable contribution side. And so she then became in charge of millions of dollars of charitable stuff and had a great influence of where it would go. And so she was able to manifest that by putting herself amongst the people that she wants to be with, or that wanted to have the ability to do that. So you get creative in finding that group that has that, and whether that's public meetings or self-development groups or certain go to country clubs. I mean, I know they're private facilities often, but there's all types of ways to get around the people that you're looking. And once they understand and see you there, did you see the Will Smith movie where he was the young man that him and his young son were homeless and he
right.
his life around?
Yes, I don't remember the name of the movie, but yes, I remember the movie.
But he literally he started just signed up as a stockbroker,
right?
A very bottom rung stockbroker. Well, he just got bold, and instead of calling just the average Joe, he went after the big shots. Mm-hmm. Well, they quickly. I mean, it's like, well, he got into their orbit. He showed up at their house. He, and again, you got to walk a line there about stalking folks, but at the end of the day, this guy became exceptionally wealthy. He's a motivational speaker now. Not Will Smith,
the guy he represented. Yeah,
and so that this is, again, it's such an incredible way to find unique ways to be around people of wealth. Not that that's our sole goal, but you're not going to, if that's your goal, figure out how to get amongst the people that would be involved in this orbit, and then let them see you, understand that when that happens, you can, I talk about all the time, I had a vision of the treatment center, the perfect treatment center for addiction that I wanted to open. And I had a vision board. I had literally a picture of this place, and I manifested that exact treatment facility.
Wow.
Now, I manifested it through someone else. It was someone else's treatment facility, but I was actually the director of that treatment facility for 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And my vision was so crazy, there was no possible way I could make that happen. But yet, I ran across a gentleman who had a similar vision and was able to implement a ton of the ideas I want to have. And his family has exceptional wealth. His wife is tobacco heiress, and had, just an exceptional amount of wealth. And they were very generous with their wealth. And they opened up a treatment center that was doing exactly what I envisioned, the identical looking house that I envisioned on 400 acres in Virginia, and implemented a lot of holistic ideas and a lot of law of attraction concepts. So I was blessed to have that in my life. Now, I thought that was sort of the point of my mission, but that evolved for me. But that time of my life was very valuable to get me where I'm at. And I literally saw that treatment center in my mind, and it came to fruition without any possible way of making that happen.
It was really, really cool. I love what your answer is to Angela. I want to add one other thought, and that is take Neville Goddard's advice, which is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, which means start imagining it. I mean, Joel was just talking about figuring out a way to get to meet these people. Imagine it. Play it out in your own mind. Invent it out of thin air. How would it be like when you're talking with somebody like this? When you're introducing yourself to them, and they came over to talk to you because you're having the cup of coffee, that kind of thing. Play it out in your mind, and play it out not from the observer perspective, but as if you're part of the scene, because that'll make it so much easier for you to actually play that scene out. It's kind of like building your own vision board, but you're putting it inside your mind. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're correct with that.
Next question comes from, well, first of all, I got mentioned that Deidre came up with the title of the movie. It was The Pursuit of Happiness, which we should have realized because it has
Great
the word happy
movie.
in it.
Well, thank you very much for researching that, Deidre. I mean, I would love to tell you I was prepared enough to have that, but Deidre had my back, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we love our audience so much. They do things like that. It's wonderful. Next question comes from Purvi, and she asks, is it possible to heal relations with my love? Practicing, I'm not sure what this is, the 2-cup method, meditation, vision board, visualization, and still he feels negative from me. I think she means negative toward me, but she's trying to heal a relationship. So what do we do for Purvi?
Well, we have to sort of revert back to that concept. She can heal her side of the relationship. She can do the stuff she wants, but she can't make someone else come around. She can treat it in a way she can see it differently. She can adjust her perspective. She can put all of her energy toward that. But we have to let go of the outcome of the other side. You can heal that if the other person has a desire to heal it. And again, I will revert back to, because I hear this a lot of times, and I've actually seen massive fights in the Facebook groups about this. and I want to always be, sort of defer to the knowledge and that I've learned. And again, this is in the book, The Secret. Rhonda talks about this. In fact, she's very specific. There's like a bold letter warning in there. You must understand, someone who is not into you, these are my words, not hers, you can't change what they're trying to bring about in their life, period. Right. Yeah. You can only do your side of it. And because there's been people who've actually crossed the line and became so obsessed with the concepts of fixing the other person or making them love them so much that it borderlines on having the opposite effect.
Right.
And so it's a very fine line to walk. All that can be done is everything she described as an incredible self-help, self-direction type method, but the control of the other person is only within the control of the other person. It's not within your control, period. Not negotiable.
Now, the good news is what is in control is her own perspective. And what's cool is that when you change your own perspective, that is influential. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to change the other person the way you want them to change, but it can't help but have an influence of some kind. And if your change on yourself is a positive one, very positively oriented, then it's going to have some kind of positive effect on the other person. So while we can't absolutely guarantee that it'll mean you'll get him back, what we can guarantee is that it will have an effect. And that effect will show up in whatever way it shows up. I mean, there's no way for us to predict what that's going to be. What we can tell you is that in the long run, it's going to be for the good of everybody involved. And that's really all we can ever ask for. Plus, it's also good to remember, very often we ask for things like this because the relationship ended abruptly or something and we've got a broken heart. And when you're in the middle of a broken heart, it seems like the world is coming to an end and it seems like you'll never love again and you'll never find the right person anymore. But that's also the time when it's most important to remember there's not just one good person for us out there. Fortunately, there are a lot of good people out there. And it's really a wonderful thing that there are so many good people out there that are just really, really good for us, really perfect for us. So it's a good reminder. It would be great if it was that guy, but it could be somebody else. Heck, it might even be somebody else who was better. Can you imagine that? That would be pretty exciting.
And that's always that's what I've seen happen. I've had and I forget, it's probably been 2 years. I had a young lady came in just totally determined that I must get my ex back. She messed up. Her descriptive, she messed up. She wanted him back. He was having nothing to do with her, and so she came to me with the concept of what do I have to do to get him back?
Right.
And I said, I don't know. You can only adjust your perspective. And it took probably 2 months of meeting weekly to get her to start. I said, you're wanting a relationship with somebody with mutual love and mutual respect, and somebody that you can, spend your life with and have a partner. That's what you're after.
Right.
You're giving the law of attraction. I must have this one person, and it was getting negative feedback or getting the opposite because the other person was not going to come around.
Right.
And once she was able to let go of that, she did meet the person that she eventually would marry.
Oh, wow.
She did meet the person but she had to change her perspective of it. What am I really after? Am I after that person just because I'm hell-bent on that person? Or I'm after a relationship of somebody of a like mind, of a like thought that can be a partner with me. And if you're after the latter, that's what you can attract. But if you're trying to attract someone who is not incongruent with not congruent with your thoughts and doesn't want to be in your life, you can't make them. And that's where a lot of people get real frustrated. They're trying to make the other person into what they're seeing, and that doesn't work.
And they don't realize, this is all of us, we all have gone through that kind of thing. We don't realize that when we're in the middle of this angst, this painful desire, I got to get this person back. We don't realize that we're actually preventing other people from reaching us, including the ones who would actually be better for us. We're blocking them. They'll never find us as long as we're in that energy. We have to change the perspective in order for the other ones to find us. That's probably the most debilitating part of all. We're stopping ourselves from having happiness because we're so insistent it has to be this person and it can't be anybody else.
Well, and that's where, and you'll see a lot of this as we're looking at different things. But in the law of attraction, when you're stuck on one simple course of action, you have limited the law of attraction to one outcome.
Right.
And that seldom, I don't want to say never works, it seldom works, where you're just limiting. There's unlimited solutions, there's unlimited remedies, there's solutions that you have not even thought of yet when your mindset's in the right. But when you're focused on one narrow outcome, it is a devastating it's usually very disappointing.
And it becomes debilitating because since you're focused on just one person, and that one person, for whatever reason, they're just not interested in coming around, you're setting yourself up for almost a lifetime cycle of continuous heartbreak. What a miserable place that is to be in. I mean, because then there's no escape. You refuse to change your perspective, so the universe keeps saying, okay, well, that's her perspective. We're just going to keep giving her more of that. She's focused on the pain. We're going to give her more pain. Like, oh, jeez.
Yeah. Yeah,
really
and
really
that's
awful.
so well put, Walt. That's a very well put.
Yeah. So, another question from Jason: is it possible to manifest my dream career in music now that I'm no longer young? Always wanted to make music that would have positive impact on a global scale, but I put my dream on the back burner to start a family. I'm wondering if my dream has a shelf life. It's a good question.
Well, I have seen people of advanced age have their dreams come true. I've seen people that I know in my life. I'm 57 and still continue. I've adopted a child recently. I have I view of no limits whatsoever due to age. Period. Mm-hmm. I have a great belief in. There's never a limit. It's what you really believe, and you do that. You bring about that by putting yourself in an environment of other people. The Rolling Stones still tour. Aerosmith still tours. Mm-hmm. These are very, very old
septuagenarians.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm speaking blindly, but I think if you do a Google search of the top grossing tours last year for musicians, I guarantee you most of the top 10 are going to be older musicians. It's just they draw a match. So yes, there is no limits. In fact, you probably, now that you're in a better mindset, I think you have more of a chance of doing it. Youth has zero advantage over experience when you perceive it that way. Youth has no advantage when you really look at it from the way of you now have a lifetime of experience, and now you can manifest what you want with the using that experience. It's harder to do it with you. So I think it would be easier to do it now than it would be to do it when you're younger, because you've seen it happen. It factually can happen. And when you start doing that, surround yourself with like-minded individuals. I guarantee you there's people feeling the same way within a 25-mile radius of you. Find those people and start that.
I'm reminded of the stories of two people who achieved their success late in life. One of them was the publisher Louise Hay, who created Hay House, which is the publisher of many of the top Law of Attraction authors. And Hay House was founded when she was in her 60s. So she wasn't exactly a spring chicken when she founded this little tiny publication house that grew into a monster. But it was incredibly successful for her. Another story that comes to my mind, this goes back a number of years, is the story of the guy who founded KFC, which was formerly known as Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
His name was Sanders.
Yes.
He actually got himself named. He lives in Kentucky, and in Kentucky, there's a really strange old law there that you can get named a colonel, an honorary colonel. So he went through the process to get that, became Colonel Sanders, and he had this chicken recipe that he was trying to peddle. He actually went around from restaurant to restaurant trying to sell them the rights to use his chicken recipe, and kept getting the same answer over and over again. We already have a chicken recipe. Why should we buy one from you? But he pursued and he persisted, and eventually, and I don't know the exact story, maybe you know the details more than I do, he ended up founding his own restaurant, and it turned into a chain and became magnificently successful. And he did it all very late in his life.
Yes. And there's hundreds of examples of that. It's now this isn't necessarily an age thing, but I remember the very first time I ever heard the word Google.
Oh yes.
I was like, what does that even mean? They go, well, it's a search engine.
What does that mean?
Why do we? Yeah, why do we? Well, I mean, I typed in stuff, and I think I had Net Explorer. I don't know what it was called, but it's something, and or Internet Explorer. Like, yeah, I said, Google. Why do they need a search engine? That'll never do any good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just a little off of that prediction.
Just a bit.
And now, yeah, Google has become sort of the generic term for search engines. I mean, it is the search engine, and everything's powered by Google. And again, it's going in with that mindset. There is zero that can't be accomplished, and any barrier we put in ourselves is simply the self-imposed limit. Whether it's age, I look at the advantage of age. I look at the advantage of experience. One thing when I was younger, and this has a lot to do with my journey, but I used to be very worried about what people think. That was almost debilitating for me. Or what if people disagree with me? Or what if am I right in what I'm thinking? It's like with the law of attraction stuff. For a long time, I was like, boy, am I sort of weird because I believe this stuff? Or
well, you are weird. Come on, Joel. Let's be perfectly honest. I am too, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, I'm about to say. Well, but I view that. I love to be looked at that. This poor doctor that I keep always bringing up his quote to me. He said, Joel, enough. I get it. You win. But I won't let it go. Of course. He said, Joel, the law of attraction doesn't work. And I go, it does. I have proof. Look at my life. And he goes, well, it only works because you believe it works. And I said, exactly. I mean, that's the answer.
That is.
I really believe it works, so it does work. And he answered his own question by trying to disprove the law of attraction.
Right.
And he proved my side.
Yeah.
And
thank you for making my point.
It really is that way. Yeah, you made my point. Thank you. And so when this gentleman wants to have a music, yes, it's not only is it doable, it's already done. If you really believe it's done. And I hope you pursue it. I hope you pursue it vigorously. And don't allow anyone to tell you that it can't be done or believe when they tell you it can't be done, because that's going to have the exact opposite direction that you want it to go. I know with me, when I was going to go into private practice after I left Williamsville Wellness Treatment Center that I mentioned earlier, I was going into private practice, and most people, oh yeah, that'll be great. But there was some people very close to me going, why don't you look for another job in a treatment center? Why don't you could probably get another job. In fact, I was offered a couple of jobs immediately. I'm like, no, I think this will work. And I would have people tell me, you know how long it'll take before you can make money, or you're not going to be, and it was, I would have moments of listening to that and have self-doubt.
Sure.
And I'm not saying this with arrogance, Walt. We talked about this before, but within 2 weeks, I was 70% full. In a month, I was full, and I ended up making more money that year than I would have made if I'd stayed at the treatment center the entire year.
Wow.
And never looked back.
Yeah.
And then another time I went to go be a director of a center that didn't work out. It didn't work out for me either. And I did it again, but this time was even easier. It was like, okay, well, and it just, at that point, I just called people that I'd put off and said, I'm on hold right now, filled up the next week. So I never missed a day of work.
Yeah, you actually undersold that because what actually happened is you lost that particular job on a Friday, and by Monday your calendar was full. That's the best way to express it, because it's like, oh my God, in one weekend?
Yeah, in a weekend. It wasn't even I said, well, this will be a good opportunity to maybe write some more on my new book.
So much for that plan.
Yeah, exactly. So this is great stuff. And so when I hear about, I don't like to see anybody's limits being determined by the age piece. To me, is an advantage. Why don't you reframe it as an advantage in your music career?
Good point. By the way, I'm also remembering there's a fairly famous musician who really didn't get very far until he was advanced age, and that's Willie Nelson. I mean, Willie Nelson was singing for a supper for all of his life, but he got nowhere for like the first 20 or 30 years. And then finally, he had a breakthrough. I don't even remember what the breakthrough was. I'm not a big Willie Nelson fan, so I don't know his history all that well. But he didn't become famous until much later in life. So, heck, if Willie Nelson can do it, why can't you do it? Right?
I completely agree. And that's so important when we look at all of that out there, that there's examples. I always use, I mean, at least once a week, I use the example of Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile.
Right.
In the history of the planet, it was never done until he did it. Then it was broke like 14 times in the 2 weeks after he did it, because he did it.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
And so it's that same thing, that there isn't, the limits are you're told of limits. We tell, every child is an artist until they're told at some point they're not. If you think about that, it's we all have, and most of the time we're told it can't, because life tells you, well, you can't be frivolous, you can't go be a musician and take care of your family. You got to go grind away. You got to go make big money.
Yep.
And then that's what happens.
Yeah.
Well, then you buy into, well, I never could have done that. In reality, I don't know, you couldn't have, and now you certainly can't.
Right. By the way, on a, I guess I'll call it a more real world position, just put the law of attraction aspect of it aside. When I think about the people who achieve fame by selling their records at a young age, or not their records these days, it's just their MP3s or whatever. But when they're selling their music at a young age, who are they selling to? They're selling to a young audience. And what are the themes that they're selling? My heart is broken. He done me wrong. All that kind of stuff. And you're very specifically, Jason, talking about how you want to have a positive impact on a global scale. Well, you probably eventually will reach that young crowd, but I wouldn't think that's where you're going to have your breakthrough. I think you're going to have a breakthrough with an older crowd. Well, then you don't want to try to compete with the young singers who are coming in trying to reach out to the younger crowd. They're reaching the wrong audience. You need to reach to a different audience. So you're not even in the same competitive boat with them. So I wouldn't even think about that. I wouldn't think about how young you are, or it's not even relevant to the question of who you're going to reach, because you want to reach a larger population on a positive impact on a global scale. That's what you said. Well, do that, because that market is wide open right now. It's not like there's a whole lot of competition there.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't try to be Justin Bieber. I mean, it doesn't. Justin Bieber isn't Justin Bieber anymore. But I mean,
this is true.
And I don't know if that's a bad thing, Walt. I mean,
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a very good thing.
Yeah. But they're the only limits for anything are the limits we put on ourselves. Yeah. That factually is what I believe. And I've lived it in my life. I'm excited for our audience to be able to deliver that message.
Absolutely.
And I know it's a hard pill to swallow when people are struggling. Factually, that's what I've seen happen in my life.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, this has been great. Thank you to our audience for sharing your questions. I think we got them all answered. If somebody got a late question in, we'll try to answer it offline, but not enough time to do it during the podcast. Joel, before we get off onto the rest of our days, I want people to know how they can reach out to you personally in case maybe they're looking for a life coach, or maybe they just want to ask you some questions or whatever. How do they reach Joel Elston?
The simplest way is Joel Elston at Gmail. I get emails constantly through the day. I've often had people, audience members, always respond. That's the simplest way to do it. Or joelelston.com, but I'm in the process of redoing that, so that might be a train wreck sometimes. But Joel Elston at Gmail is the best way to do that.
All right, very good. Well, thank you, Joel. Appreciate it. And as usual, I've loved doing this with you. I can't wait to talk to you again next week.
Buddy, good to talk to you.
All right. And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.